On today's episode of The Glue Guy, sad news, Ben Simmons is done for the year. A surprise? Not so much, but hey, we're going to talk about it. This is a Ben Simmons special. Yeah. We're going to talk about the 7 burniest questions. I think it's going to be 7. Your emails on Ben Simmons. Him now, him this summer, him into the future.
Hell of an intro, Mike. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to The Glue Guys. This is Mike here. Say hello, Brian.
Hello.
Check us out on Twitter at BKGlueGuys, netsdaily.com, The Athletic. Get yourself behind that paywall at theathletic.com/GlueGuys, a subsidiary of the New York Times company. Brian.
Mike, you were on fire.
Ben Simmons is back.
Is giving him problems.
It's problematic back.
Yeah, I've been there. I can tell you all about it. Everybody, I'm going to sit tight. Let me tell you about back problems. Because I know a thing or two.
Today, I just went to my acupuncturist to get some cupping, getting a little massage, and some acupuncture for my back. I'm simpatico with our buddy Benjamin J. Simmons.
Did he name a star after you while you were there, or what other kind of?
Stop it! You don't believe in acupuncture? Acupuncture is.
I don't, and I especially don't believe in cupping.
Have
what
you
the cupping could do?
Cupping?
I did.
Have you heard of your scilia or what your scicia? You know, it's like a saran wrap around your muscles.
Okay.
That you got to pull the toxins out of that bad boy. There's a chart in my acupuncture.
I did some chiropractor stuff, and I got to tell you,
it's a different discipline, Brian. Different discipline.
I agree. I know that it's a different discipline, but equally as kooked as the acupuncture. And I don't know. I'm just saying. I had back surgery.
Thousands of years of medicine is a kooky science. Oh, Mr. Bry. Only Mr. Cutting Edge Pfizer over here.
That's it.
Give
me the Pfizer or give me nothing. That's my policy. That's my motto.
We are giggling, but it's sad. It's a sad day. No, Ben Simmons has officially been shut down. I think Ian Begley of SNY, he actually talked to Ben Simmons' agent. So if people don't know that, Simmons used to be represented by Clutch, and he dropped Clutch. Maybe Clutch dropped him. It seemed a little bit wishy-washy on what exactly happened. But Ben Simmons' agent, I believe his name is Bernie Lee, spoke to Ian Begley and said essentially that Simmons does not need surgery, that the anticipation is that Simmons will be ready to go in time for next season, no problems, that Ben is quote, like every truly great person I've observed, Ben is motivated internally to continue to develop himself, his talent, and test his abilities and compete. He just needs to be healthy again so that he can do that, essentially, is what he said.
I would be surprised if Clutch dropped them. I feel like that's a lot of money to just drop off the books. I'm just going back to your original point.
Well, riddle me this, Bri.
Okay.
My understanding, could be completely wrong, is that the agent fee clicks in at the signing of the contract. And that's why often, like a guy like James Harden does not have an agent when he is going to sign a big contract, but then when he has that contract, he then gets the agent. I think the fee mostly locks in at the signing of the contract.
So the agent gets all of their money up front off of a signing. That would be I mean, it's possible. That's not my understanding of it, but yeah. I
think, again, totally BSing here. I think there's a separate lower fee that if you become an agent to a guy and you did not assist them in getting that contract, because the agent getting you that contract, they have rights to a certain amount of money of that contract, the 10% or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Where I think if you sign the max contract like Ben Simmons did when he was with Clutch, and then they drop off, does Bernie Lee, our good friend of the show, Bernie, I had an Uncle Bernie, great guy. I have him. He didn't die, but I have an Uncle Bernie.
Okay, shout out to Bernie.
Does Bernie Lee get that 10% now? Agents, please let us know.
Yeah, I mean, let us know in the DMs. Come on the show if you're aspiring agent, ex-agent, current agent. If you're Ben Simmons' agent, come on the show.
Speaking of agency and what the Nets should do, we originally, when I talked to Brian about this, we'd be like, let's do a special episode. Just I have these 7 questions. These are the best 7 questions that you could possibly ask about Ben Simmons. And then I was like, well, let me see what our listeners have. And their 7 questions are just as good, if not better. So this is going to be an official mailbag Hydra Beast 7 biggest questions surrounding Ben Simmons that we need to think about with him short term, medium term, long term, forever term.
Okay, so how do you want to go about? You want to do the emails first and then see if they touched on any of our questions, or how do you want to do that?
Yeah, just kind of there's going to be some emails that are duplicative. So let's go roll through the emails, and then if there's any left out there, any hanging chads for you Al Gore Bush fans, we will address the hanging chads at the end of the show.
What kind of order do you want to go in? Do you have a special? I'm just going to go in chronological order.
Yeah, go chronological. That's how I always do it.
Okay, great.
We're not Christopher Nolan here, Brian. Boom, shots fired at Nolan.
Speak for yourself. I am. Anyway. Next up, cheer boy, we got Joe Oliver. Joe Oliver. Not to dox, but well, anyways, he says, "Hey lads, listener from the UK here. Regarding Ben Simmons, how bad does the situation with him need to get before a buyout is a realistic option? Cheers, Joe." Oh boy, Mike, it's happening. We're talking buyout with Ben Simmons.
It's absolutely happening.
Here.
So just to clarify, Ben Simmons has 2 more years left on his contract, I believe. I should have looked that up before we started, but I not counting this year, the season after that. So 2 more years. So next season, the season after that. Typically that buyout comes around that last season. And from what I remember, you could space it out over the course of like 4 or 5 seasons. Ben Simmons' buyout in 2024, 2025, his salary that year would be $40 million. If they bought him out and you could space it out over 4 years, it'd be 10 million. I mean, Darren Williams' contract just came off the books like what, last year?
Yeah, really.
Remember how long that just persisted? Listen, they would buy him out if he doesn't play at all next year. Because because then you get to the point where like the $30 million in cap space that you would get by buying him out, if I have my information correct, on how the buyouts can work, $30 million in cap space, even if you have to spread out the $40 million over 4 years, is significant, is enough to where you could get, who knows what the Nets books will look like. The Nets actually stand to, if they hold on to their team, to have a lot of cap space in 2024 or 2025. So it'd basically be Mikal Bridges, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Ben Simmons are on the books. The only other players that could maybe even be on the books, Cam Thomas and Day'Ron Sharpe, the emerging Day'Ron Sharpe. Obviously, the Nets will make some signings this offseason. They will sign maybe Cam Johnson to an extension. I would imagine Cam Johnson would then be on the books. But the Nets could be significant players in the 2024 free agency cycle, which who knows who will be a free agent then. Let me ask you this, Bri.
Yeah.
Do you really want to do this buyout thing? Do we want to do that? Do we want to be buying out players? And is it that desperate? I was listening to a Bill Simmons, I think it was like Bill Simmons and Waz and a couple of other people were talking about the worst contracts in the NBA. Mm-hmm. It's pretty definitively Ben Simmons now.
Yeah. I mean, now, obviously, look at we got to incorporate the chronology of everything. Is it forever going to be the worst? Hard to know. I know people are really down on Ben Simmons right now. And I don't want to be the last guy carrying a torch for Ben Simmons, who wants to be in that position. But, if I'm really putting on my rose-colored glasses here, let's say that the back injuries are a tricky one, Mike. I want to stress this. Remember when Dwight Howard came back from back surgery and couldn't jump over a candlestick? That was that, and not to say that he truly ever came back from it, which, it's not a great parallel to draw, but he did play another 6 years of competitive basketball and was, a utility center at that point, but still was a useful player. Asterisk Dwight Howard, everyone knows the deal, but right. Diminished but useful player. Now, we don't want diminished but useful Ben Simmons. We don't want to start having that conversation, and who knows what that looks like. But the thing with back injuries are, and not to get too into the private life of somebody I don't know anything about, but it's a weirdly psychological thing because you can't jump anymore, and it doesn't feel like it's coming from your legs, but somehow you just don't have the bounce like that you used to. Mike, we've talked about this. I could dunk the ever-loving heck out of a tennis ball my whole life, and then I had back surgery, and now I cannot jump at all anymore. So speaking from experience, and it's weird, you just can't really explain it. You're just kind of in a different body. And so for a guy who's already kind of struggling with that stuff, could be a compounding factor and complicate the situation further. Takes a long time to come back from back injuries in general. So, if we're doing the benefit of the doubt thing, and, this is a long time to be giving benefit of the doubt, maybe it is credibly still enduring some after effects of the back injury. It's a very real thing. Contractually, buyout wise, I still think 2 years is a short enough time to okay, we run it back next year, see if it works. If it's truly just not it's beyond the back issues, it's beyond injury, it's just a cataclysmic falling off of a cliff skill wise and everything else, then you just have basically 1 year left of that. And do you want to be spreading that out even at $10 million a year for 4 years? I don't know.
Yeah, it's situation based, right? It's like who knows what the Nets team is going to look like. I think they're going to be pretty active this offseason because they have picks to be able to trade. They have a lot of wings on this team. And I mean, the team has, it's kind of a joke that the fact that the Nets go from all smallies and biggies to a team filled with wings. One of Royce O'Neal, Joe Harris, Dorian Finney-Smith will get traded, particularly if they re-sign Cam Johnson. And do they get traded for another player, or do they get traded for a future pick to kind of fill in more of the gap? Could be. So there's a lot that could happen. And it was, again, to reference another Bill Simmons podcast, Ryan Russillo and Bill Simmons were talking about Luka. And Ryan Russillo literally said on the pod about how perfect Luka would be on the Brooklyn Nets because of the team that the Nets have, with Bridges ascending to the level that he is, Dorian Finney-Smith already there. The Nets have the wing defenders to surround a star guard. And we're going to hear that conversation, I think, a lot. And it's going to be a conversation I think Joe Tsai will actively want the team to reinsert itself in. Listen, I know this team hasn't won a ton of games since trading Kevin Durant and Kyrie, and it's completely crazy that Kyrie blew up the season the way he did, knowing that he should have enough knowledge about basketball that whatever team he goes to, the team he would be going to this season, they would not have achieved success. This is what I went back to in the very beginning, Brian, which was when we talked about the leverage point that Kyrie used. Some people were saying Kyrie was a genius for trying to use this current Nets season as leverage for getting the 4-year max contract, the 5-year max contract. And I thought the whole time that the best thing that he could have done was to win basketball games in Brooklyn with Kevin Durant, remind everyone how great he is, and go to the second, third round finals of the playoffs. What he has done is he has become, again, the target of media and fan criticism because no team has been worse since acquiring a major player in the trade market. Of all the contenders, the Mavericks have sunk the lowest, particularly for a team that made as big of a trade as they did by getting Kyrie Irving. And it's not really all Kyrie's fault, but he unfortunately he has earned the reputation for deserving that. And so to bring it back to the Nets, Luka, I joked about this on Twitter, but it's a real thing. Our boy Igor, Nets offensive wizard assistant coach, Mr. Ruffled Hair on the side, hell of a tan.
Our guy,
our boy Igor's got. He coached Luka in Serbia or wherever where they from? Serbia,
Slovenia. And
Slovenia.
Speaking of which, Ridgewood, I just looked it up, has an ethnic enclave of expatriated Slovenians. So we got him.
It's pretty assured that there is an enclave of every type of person in Queens. I think it's a safe bet that there's an enclave.
Can you say the same for Dallas? You can't. Fort Worth, the Fort Worth area, please.
Please get out of here. The larger Dallas Metroplex. No. Get the hell out of here. Anyway, so again, it's not really about Ben Simmons, but it kind of is, because Simmons, it's the weirdest puzzle piece in the NBA right now, maybe besides Kyrie and what he's going to do in the future, is that the Nets have a guy who, as I joked about but was serious about before, Ben Simmons is the perfect guy to insert on this team, a healthy Ben Simmons. And we have a lot of questions about, can we believe in that again? But I think that regardless, this team is going to be star hunting this offseason, if Ben Simmons is going to factor into that. Yes, Brian.
And I think that brings us to our next question, which is from Cheerboy J. Cruz. And this is the big one, Mike, that we're dancing around. Okay, I'm just gonna this is not chronological order. I'm leaning into my inner.
What's a famous Slovenian dance? Famous Slovenian. Oh, the Slovenian dance. Let's see.
Well, while you pull that up, I'm gonna get
the polka.
The polka, classic.
Well, they call it the kolo. It's like a polka.
All right. Jay Cruz asks, do you think that he has the big one, Mike? And this is what we've been tiptoeing around, tap dancing, doing anything but answering, okay?
Waltzing.
And now we're going to do it. Do you think Ben Simmons will ever, in caps, get back to prime Sixers star Ben Simmons, or is he, also in caps, washed? I'll hang up and listen. Cheerboy, Joel. Thank you.
Brian, what do you think?
Washed is rough. That's a rough one for me. I think it's a to go from what he was doing. He's still very young, still sort of prime. I to say that he's going to go to full washed is still somewhat. It just still feels somehow unreal, less realistic to me than diminished. And diminished is not great, right? Diminished is not what you want to hear from a guy making that amount of money. But I just have a hard time. I mean, there's been so much drama around Ben Simmons, and it's been hard to place his injuries and all this stuff. Is he like able to? I think he's able to get back to where he was, or like 60% of where he was, which is pretty diminished. Let's call it 75 to be generous.
Yeah. 60% is pretty bad.
Pretty bad. So is that fully washed? I don't know.
That guy Royce White, the guy from Iowa State.
Yeah,
big fan of that. That's basically Royce White.
Right. So yeah, maybe that's tough. Maybe that's a hard way of thinking about it. But I'm carrying a little bit of a torch to see what he looks like early next season. A little bit.
A little matchstick that you're calling a torch.
I mean, he from right away, early in the season, I remember this vividly. There was, I want to say this was like game 2 or 3. He had a tweak in his back, like right away. And having, again, speaking from a little bit of experience, and it's also a huge bias-inducing thing, I understand. I know what that's like. It's really weird. It's really scary. It's super painful. It doesn't lay you out in the same way, like when you have like a pre-op bad back lays you out. But it is like a perpetual thing you have to think about. Like it's this new thing you have to think about when you're playing through a weird new back situation. So I'm still a little bit hopeful, tiny percent hopeful that he's not washed. But again, I'm speaking in percentages. It's really a very qualitative thing, because a lot of what's happening appears to be between the ears, Mike, and who knows with that.
Yeah. So there's a side angle to this question. Is like, okay, there were flashes. They were the fleetingest of flashes, but there were flashes this season. While Brian absolutely downs a Diet Dr. Pepper.
Should I crush this one?
You were into it.
It's one of those like mini cans, so it's a little squared off on the sides, so it kind of catches on the. Anyways,
how much? So we were not going to be able to answer this question even as I ask it. So I'll try to answer it even after I ask it. How much can we blame for this season's inability to be impactful on his health? Because like there was the knee issues that persisted. He had back surgery going into this season. And now he has an impingement in his back, which, like there's part of me as a bitter Nets fan who is like, before the impingement thing came out, I'd be like, oh, Ben Simmons is even really hurt, but Oh, sorry, just got a message. But like an impingement in your back would be extremely painful because I'm an impingement veteran with the Kyrie Irving shoulder impingement saga.
Of course.
Remember where we thought he was going to come back in like a day, and then he came back like 10 months later. And again, an impingement is, I'm not Dr. Patel, friend of the show, but I think it's essentially like bone or joints like rubbing against like muscle and tendons in a way that impinges it, that pokes, that like stretches it or pushes it together.
I'm impressed.
It doesn't feel good.
I'm impressed, Mike, that you know all that.
Little stuff. Okay. So it can't feel good. So if he's like, I hate to say this, like if he was truly hurt all year, I think there's like a 70% chance that his issues, I'm going to do a piece of pie here. Okay. 40% health was his issue. Physical health was his issue this season. I would say 30% was also like the rehabbing and trying to get back in the flow of all the health issues, plus being away from basketball for a year, about why he was not impactful. And then another 30% is mental.
Can we incorporate a small little sliver of a slice just to for like,
we're going to mark up the price on that sliver, like for the whole pie, it's $16, but that sliver is going to be $3.
Fair. And this is being very generous, and that's why it's just a sliver. So keep in mind, we're talking about
how much of a sliver we're talking.
This is like 2% of a pizza. Okay.
Okay.
To the fit with the other stars on the team, is it possible that style of play is not necessarily conducive to his strengths?
Yeah, I think so. I'm putting that is within my 30% quadrant of the rehab, coming back to the team, getting back in the flow. I think
that's in the rehab quadrant. Okay.
Well, rehab quadrant is really more of like getting back into the flow.
Here's what we can do.
Quadrant.
Can we formalize it? Can we take 28%?
It's not a quadrant. It's a trijoint or something.
Okay, well, we're making it a quadrant. 28% rehab, 2% fit. Is it possible? Is it possible?
Yeah. So defining rehab is getting back into the flow of having not played basketball for a year, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I think there could be a 2% quadrant within the 30% trijoint of.
I want to make these two separate instances. I want to say
no, they are mushed together, Brian.
I want to say, irrespective of the rehab, even if there was no rehab, he might not be a perfect
This is why we
fit.
could never open up a pie shop.
We would. It would be. Remember that time we went to what's it called? The place with the mayonnaise pie that they have.
Artichoke.
Artichoke. That's a dense. That's a dense.
That's such a shot against one of the most famed slices of pizza.
That's a mayonnaise pie. Look,
it's a mayonnaise pie. And why that doesn't get dragged in the media the way that like a deep dish pizza, it's essentially a deep dish pizza, but with mayonnaise. It's like the worst.
It is delicious.
Don't
get me wrong.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. It's a fantastic piece of pie. So again, to reframe this discussion, 2% of the pie is fit. And I've incorporated the 2% into my rehab.
It's
flow.
insane. I don't know why you're insistent on this, but okay, I'll give you your space.
Incorporation. 40% is health and 30% is mental.
Wait, how is 40% health and 30% rehab two separate quadrants?
I think you're hung up. Okay, I shouldn't. It's my fault. I shouldn't have said rehab.
Okay.
What I mean is getting back into the flow, the actual basketball-y parts of basketball.
Okay.
Of like,
so not rehab. What
practice.
I
mean is
you're
like
talking about practice.
But the games, he didn't play basketball for a year, and then he had to get back in the flow.
You're talking about ramping up. You're talking about the ramp.
The ramp.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a pizza with ramps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful. Love ramp season.
And okay, so the ramp, which is looks about a 30 degree incline.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be honest,
could be.
30% is the ramp. 40% is pure health issues, the knee, the back, and then 30% is mental. And I don't mean that like flippantly. Like guy who publicly has talked about mental health issues, or just mental health. I don't want to call them issues. Just what he's dealing with mentally. He wasn't locked in. Wasn't fully engaged, and as much as we want to call him great and a competitor, the competitive fire wasn't there. And health and flow, all these pieces of pie make one big pie. They all coalesce together into one mushy, yucky matzo ball. Mozzarella ball. Excuse me, mozzarella. So let me throw this to you, Brian. Okay. How much do we blame this year on his health, his actual physical health, and the ramp that preceded that physical health? Like, because the important part of that answer is like, okay, if you think health was such a big impact, that okay, if he gets healthy, he can be somewhat of himself again.
Yeah.
But if you don't believe health was actually any factor, then we're screwed, essentially.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty big factor. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, like, replaying the whole thing in my head now, like there was real urgency to be a championship contending team, and we had come off of a pretty, again, brutal first round sweep, and we wanted to save face in the wake of the James Harden snafu. I think there's probably a lot of pressure for him to get back and be chur boy again. And I think that was, I mean, I think there was not to say that we, made it so that it was escalating him in a way that's like was bad for his body or whatever the case. I just think there's a lot of pressure for him to just, not be injured. And if there's nagging, especially with weird injuries like back stuff, nagging injuries, a lot of pressure to show up and be good and like just all of a sudden hit the ground running and be a championship contending team again. As soon as that stopped like becoming super obvious, I mean, right around like, I guess November when everything started to get hinky again, I think you could take the foot off the gas a little bit. And I think that's like, as I replay, like, we were winning games. He was sort of in and out occasionally. Yeah, it just never seemed like obviously he's healthy and not playing as well. Like it just always kind of seemed like health was a nagging concern. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that, I guess, until proven otherwise. But I mean, unless you're saying that like the health is a convenient excuse to not play at a high level, which, I guess we can put on our tinfoil caps and do that. But I think that's unfair, I guess, at the moment, just based on the fact that he had surgery and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think no one gave him the benefit of the doubt because he had, like, you just don't have back surgery because
it's not a fun thing. And also back surgery is like, they got a weird reputation because they don't always work. Like that's the tricky thing with back surgery. A lot of like, they have a like weirdly high, like, oh, oops, it didn't work sort of rate compared to other surgeries.
I think if I was a surgeon, I'd really figure it out though. Yeah. I don't feel like it's that hard. I've cut open a chicken. Like a roasted.
You roasted a chicken then,
and it's not that hard to get in. Yeah,
I roasted a chicken just yesterday. You know what I did?
Tell me.
Bouillon cube. Sorry, cube. I mixed that in with oil, right? Made a little like rub with the bouillon, and then put that on the outside of the chicken, and shoved a lemon up its.
Gotta shove that lemon up there.
And
I do that on a daily basis. Let me ask you first. Let's take a break. Coming back, we're gonna do more pod. And we're back, Brian.
Next up.
Wait. What? No, wait. Don't do it. Don't do
Cheer boy. William Babcock. I went full Vince McMahon on that one. Babcock. That's sort of a Vince McMahon. Anyways, he says in the subject line, Simmons shoots with the wrong hand theory, go off, and then he just says, see the subject. Mike, it's funny. I saw the JJ Redick thing and got more. This is back from February, was when it really hit the trades. I was thinking about it. I was like, anytime that there's any kind of confusion whatsoever about what hand you're shooting with, it's probably it's sort of self-evident that you should just go back to the lab and work on things. I don't know. There shouldn't be confusion about that. It feels like it's like most of human history. We kind of have that locked in. I don't know that we need to have confusion there.
That's a very good point. If the question even needs to be asked, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
And so, the theory I think even goes back to like Kevin O'Connor at The Ringer has written about it for years. And there was like a weird thing about, I think it was Simmons' dad who taught him to shoot lefty because he thought it's harder to defend lefties. But Ben Simmons is a righty and everything else he does. And this is just the Ben Simmons is the JFK assassination of NBA players.
I will say
we're always going to have weird theories that we won't be able to answer with this guy.
Okay,
unfortunately.
Here's the two scenarios, and you got to choose one. Have a parent who teaches you a mind warping thing where now you're using the wrong hand. Okay, but you go to the NBA and you make a generational amount of money and then flame out, or B, you shoot standard and run the risk of not being as dynamic and getting to the NBA and making generational amounts of money.
I think shooting with the wrong hand is hindering Ben Simmons.
Yes, but he got to the NBA, Mike, and made a lot of money. Might not have a legendary career in hindsight.
No, I think he's being held back. I think a 6'10", super athletic, incredibly intelligent, ball handling maestro.
But what if in the process of learning how to shoot with the left hand, he got so deft enough with the left to be a competent ball handler, generally speaking, bad-ish shooter with the left, comparatively speaking. Anyways, it's
like the
Daredevil
theorem that like he has a weakness in one area, but it heightens his other sentences.
Exactly, it's the Daredevil theory.
Okay, I like that, the Daredevil theory. Next up,
G-Boy, that's Matt Hardy.
A real Hardy boy.
Okay, Matt says hello.
You get it? It's like
I got it. He says, "Hello, chaps. How long?"
I don't think you get it.
I got it. I promise. Hello, chaps. How long do you wait for Ben to get it together? How do you balance patience and just moving him? Also, if you stack lasagna on top of another lasagna, is it just one big lasagna? Big questions. Okay, thanks. Bye. Matt Hardy says
it is.
Actually, caveat. I can address this. I had it. Here's the separation of church and state. If you're making a lasagna, and then on top of it, you put a little sprig of basil, that's a whole lasagna. And if you put another lasagna on top of that, that's two lasagnas stacked, one on top of the other. It's the basil divide.
Is that in the New York City municipal charter? That basil is the differentiating factor.
That's the divide.
Floors.
Now, if you're the kind of person that doesn't garnish their lasagna, if you're one of those plebes, okay, then you can stack them as high as you want, and it's one giant lasagna. So
I do think our spinoff podcast should be called Garnish the Lasagna.
Yeah.
That's our TikTok.
Yeah.
I like it. So how long do you wait for Ben to get better? Well, they have him on 2 years left, 2 more years in his contract. So there's a whole question of moving him. I will say this, okay? So we are experiencing this now in real time as Nets fans. When Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were on the team, the Nets were on First Take every day. They were on First Things First every day. They led every NBA show, every NBA podcast for the 3.5 year period.
I like this take already. I'm really enjoying it. I like where your head's at.
We are already, the temperature has dropped so significantly. It's like after a summer thunderstorm and the storm has rolled away and we're dropping that temperature. The humidity in the air has just dropped completely. Our boy, Alex Schiffer of The Athletic, wrote a great story about Mikal Bridges being the Iron Man of the NBA. And it's a very good story. I could probably guess internally, the general audience of the NBA cares less about that story than if Kyrie, had long fingernails. Which would be a great story if Kyrie's just started growing his fingernails. Like that guy.
Yeah.
Do you ever have the Guinness book and he just had like the
rolly,
the lasagna fingernails? If we're gonna go back to that. And so to tie it back to Ben, there's a common idea that the team that Ben Simmons needs to be on needs to be a team that is not. Brian,
I got like a hairball.
Wriggling.
Yeah.
It needs to be a team that's like not high wattage. Well. Welcome back to being a true net. This team, it plays in Brooklyn. It certainly will be discussed. It will be discussed more than the Indiana Pacers for the most part. But the best thing about being a Nets fan, the best thing about covering, being around this team and being a fan of this team is not to be a bandwagon team. It's to be the authentic, scrappy sort of underdog who's not discussed all that much, right? And it's not the Lucali pizza place of Brooklyn. It's like the actual slice shop around the corner that it's not going to be on eater.com.
No.
But it tastes just as goddamn good, if not better, and way cheaper prices to get in than MSG. So the Nets are kind of the perfect place. Now, the one thing I'll say, I think there's definitely shifting priorities internally about Ben Simmons, as we heard Jacque Vaughn continually say in the media about I'm not that like thinking that hard about incorporating Ben Simmons into this team. Essentially, Ben's not going to get that extra special star treatment anymore.
Yeah,
even if he did, I think he did for a period, but he will have a team that will be filled with nice guys and will not be on the amount of ESPN games they will be on next year in TNT will be very tiny.
Can I also say, I think it's an especially high EQ approach to handling the new paradigm of the Ben Simmons situation. The whole star things started to go poorly for Ben once the stardom kind of really kicked in. I think it's an interesting tack to be like, let's de-escalate that as part of your identity. Let's supplant the stardom, Kylie Jenner, whatever Jenner, sort of fixation stuff. Let's get you out of TMZ. Kendall Jenner. I know that. I can get that right. Let's de-escalate all that.
Do a new take?
I do. Let's get rid of the
3, 2.
Let's get rid of the Kendall Jenner TMZ lifestyle thing, and deprioritize that stuff, and in effect get back to your basics, get back to the roots. Did you ever love the game, Ben, for the sake of the game?
I don't think he did.
All right,
maybe that's ever really loved the game.
That's not the track, but there's something in there, and it's at least a different approach than continuing to be like, hey, you're a star, like, be a star again. And I don't know, it's a reset maybe, and might pay out. Anyways, next up,
your boy,
we've got Dorian Winwitty. It's an alias that he has to be called, Dorian Winwitty. So I'm going to start with the second question, Mike, because this is 2. Hey, long-time listener, huge fan of the show. Thanks, man. Long-time and huge fan of the Nets. Just curious how you guys met. How'd you become Nets fans? Can't seem to find the very first Glue Guys episodes. More power to the show. Well, we buried the first episodes of the Glue Guys under a river, like they did in Deliverance. Okay, it's under the lake. So that's gone forever. But Mike, we met in college. Okay, couple of college boys on the first floor of Kimmel Hall in Syracuse University. Yep. I would come into your room, sneak in late at night, and play Guitar Hero. I got really good really quickly, as I
like everything you do,
as I often do, and that became the basis for a lifelong friendship. And Mike was just a sports hound, just a dog. I'm weird. I actually I was born in New Jersey, and my dad liked going to Nets games because they were really cheap tickets, and I just took hold. We would go to Nets games as I started going in the Petrovic, Kenny Anderson, Derek Coleman era. So I would also just impose that upon anyone that I met. That was a big part of my identity. It was just like, I watch the Nets, and now you are too if you're going to hang out with me. So Mike, a follower, wanted to hang out with me really bad.
A beta.
Yeah. Watched Nets games with me. What I did. No, that's not true. He twisted in the wind and never watched Nets games with me until we both moved to New York right after college. And I was like, Mike.
Well, we lived together sophomore year.
Yeah, we lived together sophomore year. Sorry, I should say
we sang a lot of Mariah Carey together.
Mike had mono the entire year and was super stressed out. And actually, he worked hard at school and went to the broadcast school, so he was busy. I was in the arts program, so I partied and hung out. So different tracks there, but we met back up later in life to start the podcast. Is that a
yeah? Because Brian messaged me on Facebook. Because Facebook was a thing and said we should do a podcast, and then a year later we did a podcast.
Because Mike was like, "What is a podcast?"
What is a podcast?
I was like, Mike, sit down. Let me explain this to you.
No, but we have persisted over time. I will say, we stuck to it. We were doing SoundCloud.
We did.
We were posting episodes. We weren't even tagging them. We had no idea of any concept of even finding an audience.
Yeah.
And look at us now. Now we get millions of listens per episode.
Millions per episode. It's crazy. Yeah. So shout out to our relationship, Mike. Okay. So pour it out for us.
It's one of my most fulfilling, which is it's hurtful.
Wow. Why is that hurtful?
I Brian.
Hey, we're friends.
Look at me in the eye. Look at me in the eye right now.
We're
Oh,
friends.
there you go.
Okay. Wait, no. He's got another question.
Sorry, once it plays, it's got to play.
It out.
John Cena.
It's
cannot
Dorian
be
Winwitty
stopped.
again. Back up. He says the first question was: Does current Nets need a playmaker like Ben 10? Is it beneficial for the Nets to keep him, get him healthy, and hope for the best, or trade him? If trade, for who and what package? I'm going to try to subsect this into the latter half of that question because we've talked a lot about that. But who could possibly be a trade target for Ben Simmons, Mike? The people want to know. It's an impossible question. You've got an answer.
Literally right now, it's no one. There's always this idea that there's no contract that is not tradable in the NBA. The only way the Nets could trade Ben Simmons is if they package together all the picks that they got from Phoenix and threw it in with Ben Simmons to get I don't know, anyone who's making $40 million a year on a team that they are deciding now to tank. So, the people who are making $40 million are, it's Trae Young and Zach LaVine and Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is a way better player than Ben Simmons. There are guys, there's names we could throw out there. There's even you could do the whole comboing two pretty bad contracts. The Hawks seem to always want to get rid of John Collins. So is it John Collins plus Clint Capella for Ben Simmons and all the picks? The Nets could do that. What's going to happen is they're not going to trade him. He's not going to be traded for anything. The Nets are just going to hold on to him. They're going to hope to rehab him and hope that, if he is actually healthy, that he can be a thing. He can be a guy. He can be a role player who makes $40 million a year and get to that final year of the contract when he's an expiring contract of a guy who played basketball, and then use him in a trade to get Karl-Anthony Towns, Trae Young, Luka Doncic, whoever, but just he will be the contract filler to that and to then get him. But they're not moving him. No team wants him. It's the only team, the only way that any team would want him is if it's the Spurs for some reason is suddenly we think we can turn him into something at some point significant, and you will give us first round picks plus him just to get him off your books, and we can just take him on fully. You usually don't see the salary dump like that with 2 years left in the contract, which is what he's going to have. So he's a Brooklyn Net. Embrace him.
I'm trying to think if there's any other questions that really go off script. There's one that I promised I would say from the Discord, so let's
dial it up.
Let's dial it up. Next up, True Boy. That's Curfew DC, aka DJ Curfew. From the Discord, Mike. Shout out to the Discord. That's discord.gg/glueguys. Again, what you're seeing here with the podcast, it's a tip of the iceberg. Glue Nation goes deep. It's baked into the fabric of society. Stonemasons, Illuminati, it's everywhere. So, and your access point to all of that is through discord.gg/glueguys. DJ Curfew says, hey, Brian and Mike, is there any chance that Ben will be a good player next season? There is no evidence that points to that because he refuses to work on his game. I do not think our culture will fully recover until Ben's becomes good or we get this $35 million leech out of the organization. How can we stress culture when our highest paid player can't play and is trash when he does play? Our quote-unquote team leader cannot be mentally compromised like Ben is. All I know is Ben needs to get his S together or he will be playing in Turkey somewhere. 2 SE for China. Dang.
Wow. Wow. Curfew DC.
This is what I'm talking about. This is the kind of spicy takery that happens on the Discord. So, I'll take this part of the question is Ben Simmons a team leader? Is he even in that position? Because I do think that's been basically already handed over to Mikal Bridges.
Do you think Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson even think about Ben Simmons? It's
no.
It would be like the kid on the freshman floor who is supposed to be there but does have mono, who just never showed up and has mono and is at home. And it's he's never existed for this version of the Nets. The Dinwiddie, Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, Dorian Finney-Smith. Ben Simmons has he played a minute with them? I don't think, right?
There must have been. He was coming off the bench for a half a second there, and
maybe a half a second.
Yeah.
But it's like so, and I think Curfew DC was referencing team leader as like mockingly.
Well, I think baked into the joke is the implication that he could be considered part of the leadership of the team. I don't know. Is that? I mean, I don't. I think it's like we were saying previously with the Jacque Vaughn stuff, is that we've taken that mantle off the mantle.
Off the mantle. Do you think there is something with Curfew DC references, like something insidious about the guy who makes the most money in the team being a complete non-factor?
Yeah.
Do you think it impacts culture? Because I don't think it does. I mean, I know guys are very naturally, like Brian knows how much I'm obsessed about people's salary, and it would bug the shit out of me if I played for the Nets and like Ben Simmons was making X and I was Cam Thomas and I was like, dude, I can fucking destroy him one-on-one, and I'm making $3.
This is just vulgarity laced.
The Bulgarian vulgarity. Sorry, almost done. My kid is
pounding
on the door.
Yeah,
but do you think like anyone on the team actually cares about Ben Simmons? I don't think they do. I think it's like he's immediately out of sight, out of mind, and one sec, guys, and that's it. You know, it's like they will wait to think about him next season when and if he plays. I think there's a real possibility. We should have said this earlier. I do think there's a real possibility he never plays. Not because of health, but because of mental just decision making. But I think that's still a smaller percentage because like the guy's like has been good at basketball, and justifiably the health thing is probably a higher percentage chance again of the reason why he was not very good.
Here's why I'll say I don't think it's that likely. It's I don't think he's got a lot of other hobbies, even if he's not super enthusiastic about basketball. I mean, the alternative is to go and play Call of Duty on Twitch, which I think is tempting for a certain kind of person. Don't get me wrong, tempting for me, and I get it. But I think it's a little exhausting. You get tired of that pretty quick. You're going to want something else to fill up your time. And until he starts that woodworking hobby or whatever it's going to be, I don't see that there's much motivating. Could be
pickleball.
Rough on the back though, Mike. Rough on the back. A lot of bending over. That's it, Mike. Your kids are pounding on your door. They're going to climb through the window. Let's get out of here. Where do they find us?
Find us on Twitter at BKGlueGuys, netsdaily.com, The Athletic. Get yourself behind the paywall at theathletic.com/glueguys.
And quickly, just shout out to everybody else. And we didn't get to all the emails. We had a bunch of emailers today, which is super fun. A spicy conversation. Thanks to everybody. And sorry if we didn't get to you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Mike, say goodbye.
Bye.